money. And the money.
Once again, thank you for returning to the On The Money Show. I'm Aidan Doll, as you should know by now, if you've been loyal and if you're eating your Wheaties and tuning in every Tuesday onto your BCAT station, you'll know who I am, and you'll know that these are very interesting times. So I have my co-host Julie Sinha with me. I'd like her to say hello and introduce herself, and then we're going to talk about what's been going on this week.
Good evening, Brooklyn. I'm Julie Sinha, and I'm glad that we're live today because there's a lot going on in the markets. And with that, I'll go back to Aidan.
Thank you, Julie. The opening shot of the show, ladies and gentlemen, was this object, which clearly is a mishmash of Metro cards designed to look like a complex object. But in fact, what is it? It is one of these. The reason I've used this as an example is to illustrate substance over form, which is to illustrate concept of things are not as they appear. Okay, I changed the show about 4 times this week. I'm sure you can understand that was probably unavoidable because we've had the craziest week in the financial markets worldwide, in my opinion, since the Depression, but actually I'd probably say historically. I was going to call this show Armageddon, but I changed my mind. I decided to call it Anyone Got Change of a Trillion, because quite frankly, the ticker tape on the news systems and the agencies that report financial events, every time you turn around, they're quoting $50 million funding for XYZ Bank, bailout for AIG, market up 250 points, redundancies here, General Motors going out of business, Ford down the tubes. I can clearly understand why if you turn on any TV station, in fact, if you flip from me right now, which you better not do, and if you go to another station, there is a very strong possibility that you'll find someone, not as good looking as me, talking about what's the financial events globally and trying to make some sense of them. I would like you to stay right here because, in fairness, I'm going to make this a little less technical than they will. Okay. I'm not going to talk about cause and effect. There's too many other people doing that. What I want to talk about is what an investor can expect and what needs or what actions can be taken to mitigate loss or to possibly result in any gain. That you've got to talk. Okay, I watched a TV show today. I always segue, but it's to make points that come to me as I'm on air. I watched Jim Cramer do a stint on The View today. It was around 1 p.m. And I don't agree with Jim Cramer's philosophies, essentially, but I will give him his kudos on one thing he said. He said, and I quote, "Your actions or your reactions, based on how the market's behaving and all the ebbs and flows and all the major market swings that are taking place, should be based on your time frame." In other words, if you have got money in the market that you need for a college fund in 5 years, what do you care what it does on, what would it be, Monday or Tuesday, October 14th, 2008? You have to be able to disregard these intraday movements or you will go crazy. However, if you're nearing any maturities or you're nearing any requirements of capital or withdrawal of funds, then you should consider safety. Okay, I have to do a few things today. I was going to call this show Armageddon. And I'll tell you what, I wrote this based on the events of Friday just gone, which was, I believe, the 12th, 24th, maybe the 9th, I can't remember. This is the 14th, so last Friday. That was when the market tanked again. I think it was down 700 and change. Typically, we've seen a reversal since then. I think the market picked up 963 yesterday. I think it did some crazy stuff today. As at the time this show has been recorded, it is Tuesday, the 14th of October at 4 p.m. The market lost 76 points today after having been up 400. That again is a 500-point swing, which in these last 2 weeks is normal. Okay, I'm going to try to alleviate or put some blame in some or try to encourage some parties out there to do things or to stop doing things that they're doing, okay? Now, I'm not a big fan of attributing blame, but I will say the following. There are parties out there that have less than the best interest of the market at heart. I'm going to make this simple. These facts are unassailable and they're unequivocal. Hedge funds. Look, I guarantee you, this is October the 14th. I would say before the year end, the hedge funds, as we call them, as we define them, will be regulated and may have been put out of business. Now, for those of you that don't know who hedge funds are, it is such a pleasure to ask Julie to explain that to you.
Thanks, Aidan. Well, you asked in the beginning of the show, and it is the title of the show, Who Has Changed for a Trillion? Very funny, but actually all the hedge funds, we could say put together, do have change for a trillion. This is a group that's open to funds that not every investor can touch. This is institutional investors, very wealthy individuals that have access to a fund that is not as regulated as other securities in the marketplace. What this means, though, is that there's a lot of risk involved, as well as the people who are putting money into it and the producers that are, or the hedge fund managers accounts. We can't see a lot of what happens, but they can do a lot of things that other securities can't, like short selling, which we spoke about in the last show, and even investing money in works of art. The other interesting fact here is that hedge funds are a misnomer. That actually, in a hedge fund, it's what's being invested into there is actually a hedge against the investor. And with that, Aidan's going to explain this and clarify what a hedge fund is and why it's important right now to be paying attention to this.
It is very important. And I'll tell you something else. You would not ever have the market downturns that we've had in the last, well, in fact, historically, but let's just use the last 2 weeks as a time frame because they are very, they're pretty material. You could not possibly have the downturns we've had across the board in global markets unless it was for hedge funds. Hedge funds have a little niche in the financial industry all by themselves. It's just the nature of the way they're set up. But a hedge fund manager, and this is true, it's the law, I'm qualified to say this, does not have to report his position. He is not regulated by any authority. As long as he only deals with certain clients, and by certain I mean extremely wealthy individuals, accredited investors, etc. As long as he doesn't handle the man in the street, no, he doesn't have to report his actions to anyone or anybody. Working. But if the hedge fund manager is doing things that are against the public good, and I really mean that, it's not just about let's make a buck. You have to have some responsibility, you have to have some accountability, and you have to, I know it's a ridiculous thing to say in financial markets, but you have to have some, you have to do the right thing. Okay, we talked about hedge funds. I don't want to spend all day on them because you're going to find out that by the end of the year I'm right, that they will be, they won't be gotten rid of, but they will be brought into regulatory control. They will be monitored closely, and the actions that they've taken to date, that, willy-nilly won't be allowed anymore. There are other people to blame for the market slide, and I'm actually one of them, or when I say one of them, I mean the media. Here's what happened. By the way, it's board time. How can I put this? Stop blaming Wall Street for the credit market problems. It's not a Wall Street problem, it's a credit market problem. It is the easiest thing in the world to say, my goodness, this is Joe Investor we're talking about here. I'm going to be slow and meticulous with my handwriting today. Joe Investor, property value before September, let's say 150,000, 1st of September. Property value after the Dow went from 11 to 8. Okay, I can't believe I'm saying 11 to 8. Property value post September or going into October, $96,000. Now, where's that $54,000 gone? Here's the question. Joe Investor picks the paper up, sees that there are some AIG sales reps getting junkets out to the middle of Hawaii, and it costs the company $600,000. So Joe Investor thinks, hey, that money was mine. They've having fajitas and junkets out to the Middle East? No, okay? The markets, there's only one